Hey there, it's Cassidy Cash. Welcome to Thursdays at Ask Dr. Callahan. Each week here at Ask Dr. Callahan, I come on Thursdays at 2 to talk with you guys. I address questions that you've asked us over the last week through homework help or support, or that you've reached out and wanted to know about. Sometimes I'll update you on what we're doing here at Ask Dr. Callahan, new things that we're offering. But in general, this time is to help you as you are educating your students at home. We want to offer up suggestions and answers to questions just to encourage you and support you as you are getting your kids ready for college and for life. So this week, our topic that we're going to talk about is the idea of helping too much. And I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, especially if you are a mom watching this, because I know as moms, we are the keepers, right? We keep the time, we keep the assignments, we keep the soccer practices and the pictures and the secrets and the conversations, and we keep up with everything. We keep up with the schedules, and we keep up with what they're supposed to be getting done, and we make it all run and happen. And I know that that's what we do. But as our kids move into high school, especially 11th and 12th graders, it's something that I've dealt with a whole lot with the students that I work with as a private tutor, and that I've just seen is that when you're getting them ready for college and for life, something that it's really important to do is to help them learn to be independent. And so today what I'm going to talk about is exactly what that's going to look like, because it's not a completely hands-off thing, how it sounds, when you're teaching your kids to be independent, because that's definitely not what you want. Because if you've been doing everything for them and then suddenly they're finished and they go to college or to their job and they've never had to handle any kind of time management or personal responsibility at all, and they go from mom's doing everything to I'm having to do it all, that's too harsh. And so what we want to do in high school, and I'm talking specifically to 11th and 12th graders here, is build them a foundation that they can go forward off of. Remembering that the purpose of education is to build a foundation for life. Now, we have practical steps that are involved in that. When you're getting ready for college, there are tests that you have to take, and getting ready for that specific exam may not translate into a specific life skill, but the process does. Does that make sense? And so as parents, we can get so consumed with making sure that they complete their assignments that we end up being more of a detriment than we are a help. And so students will end up with this perceived idea that, well, I'm still a kid, and so my mom's going to handle everything for me. I don't have to know what my upcoming assignments are. I don't have to know how long to spend on math every day, or I don't have to know what I need to do. And it's not true, right? Because what marks an adult from a child is that adults make their own decisions. And so whether those are good decisions or bad decisions, when you're an adult, no one tells you what to do, and you are wholly responsible for the consequences of your actions. And while I'm not recommending that you treat a child like an adult before they're ready for that, what I am suggesting is that part of math education and taking classes in high school is to teach your children how to make responsible choices and how to step into that part of responsibility. And there are I'm looking at my notes, 5 areas specifically. The first one is a class syllabus. Now, this is one of the things we include in our teacher's guide, but you'll also get this if you audit a class at a university, or if you take a cooperative class. The teacher will give you out what is essentially a list of assignments and dates when they are due. It's called a syllabus. And this is something that your student needs to take charge of following. They need to get in the habit of looking at this each week and knowing, what they have coming up, and structuring their work in between to meet those deadlines. The second one is contacting the teacher, or if you're taking an Ask Dr. Callahan course, reaching out to homework help or reaching out to our support line, which are the same thing. But some people call it support and some people call it homework help. But if you're reaching out to us with questions, your student can do that. Obviously, supervise them on the internet and all of that, but they need to be taking that initiative of, hey, I have a problem, I have a question, I need to go and ask the person that can answer my question, which is why, by the way, we call our company Ask Dr. Callahan. is because when you don't know something, it's important to ask someone who does. There you go. Number 3 is being organized. I know a lot of 16, 17, and 18-year-old students in 11th and 12th grade who have no idea how to be organized. And I'm not talking, you have to be super type A with all kinds of binder dividers and stickers and highlighters and all that kind of stuff, but you need to know where things go. Your homework needs to have a place, your class notes have a place, and you keep up with what you're doing. So if someone comes and asks you what you make on your last test, you can go to your notebook and pull that out. A student in 11th and 12th grade is more than capable of staying this level of organized, keeping their pencils sharpened, making sure they have paper. These are all reminders that would come through from mom and dad, but the student needs to be taking responsibility there too. The 4th place is in turning in assignments. I see this a lot with parents. They will make sure that their children don't miss an assignment. And that's okay, but your student needs to be learning how to be aware that the deadline is coming up and meeting that deadline on their own without having to have someone tell them that it's coming up. So just as you're putting that together, the way it looks for your particular student is going to be very unique to you, but make sure that you're training them to be responsible for knowing a deadline is coming up and making sure that they get the work done by that deadline. And that may involve letting them get a lower grade for missing a deadline a couple times to help them learn that there are consequences for missing a deadline, and that mom's not necessarily going to step in and fix it for them. This is part of the process. And then the last one, I think I already actually touched on this one, so actually my outline doubled up, but the last one I had written down was about getting support, was about recognizing that it's not about knowing everything, because you're never going to know everything. It's about when you discover something you don't know, being able to find out, sometimes knowing that you don't know is a big leap in and of itself. So basically, what I'm trying to encourage you to do here this week is that parents should be there to guide and supervise their 11th and 12th graders. Kind of like my example is, I took a driving course one time, and the car had 2 sets of controls. One that looks normal, like a driver's seat should, with all of the gear shifts and the pedals and the steering wheel. On the other side of the car, there was sort of a hidden set of emergency brake pedals underneath the passenger's side of the dashboard that the driving instructor sat over there. And we were learning how to, the student sat in the car and was driving. We were in charge of putting it in drive and knowing where the gear shifts are, knowing where the controls are, and actually steering the car where it needed to go. If we got into any serious trouble learning how to do things, then the instructor had the emergency brake pedal and could press that and keep us from getting into some serious disasters. But we were in charge of learning how to drive. And if we hit some cones along the way or we took a turn too sharp, he wasn't preventing those things. And so that's kind of your role now in 11th and 12th grade, is to sort of take that passenger seat, and you are guiding and you are supervising. You're a safety net and an emergency brake pedal to keep them from making any major mistakes. But even things like signing up for their courses and finding out what books they need and finding out what supplies they need, they're capable of this. And so you might remind them that this is coming up and say, what do you want to take? Obviously, it's your money. You're paying for the classes that they take. So it needs to be a conversation. And by all means, parents have veto power. But start helping your children learn to think about, what do I need and how do I get it, as they go through this. And so basically, you're wanting to, you might set study minimums for them every day and say, you've got to work, like we recommend, an hour a day on math. You might set that minimum for them, and you want to establish regular accountability with them, where you're keeping them accountable for what they're supposed to be doing. And you might institute consequences for any students that aren't necessarily stepping up to the expectations there. But, even when you get into things like paying bills or managing your HOA or even a Bible study or being on city council or any kind of life skill as an adult, getting a job, all of these things are going to require that you understand what needs to happen for you to meet your goals, and then meeting those deadlines along the way. And so this sort of self-management is what they need. And now I'm going to encourage you, this is the encouragement part, don't panic, okay? If they fail a class, it's not the end of the world. And a 70, by the way, in high-level math is okay grade. If they're working really hard and they're studying really hard and they get a 70, that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is all material they've never seen before. So even if you're coming across some things that are new to you or surprising, don't panic, don't freak out. You know, it's better to be proactive than reactive. And sometimes it's okay to let them fail. If if they've got a test coming up next Wednesday and they don't do any of their homework and they're cramming Tuesday night and so they fail the test on Wednesday, let them. You know, don't force them, because what you're doing is you can step in too much. You want to be one step back and making sure that, you know, then from there you will help them learn, okay, here's what happens, let's not do that again, what can we put in place? And so you're talking with them, but you're holding a high standard of excellence for them. I was talking with my husband about this, and he was saying he teaches a lot of ASLs and Spanish classes at local cooperatives around here. So he works with a lot of 10th through 12th grade students as well. And I was telling him this was what I was going to share with you today. And his thoughts were to remind me that kids, when they are learning to walk, and he said there was an actual study done where they found out that if kids are not allowed to fall down when they're learning to walk, they don't ever actually learn to walk, that the falling down is part of the process. And so if you have a student that's struggling to be self-motivated and struggling to be responsible for their own work, remember that it's okay to let them fail a few assignments. It's okay to let them fail an entire course and have to retake it. This is a learning process after all. Their grades are not what we're after. Raising responsible adults who are prepared for life is what we're after. And so make sure that you keep the main thing as you're going through this. Now, obviously, this is just a suggestion. Your situation is unique to you. Your student is unique to you. And I'm not going to know them at all. You know them the best. So what works for your student is definitely what you should do. But these are just some ideas. If you have 11th and 12th grade students that are looking at heading into college and certainly looking at being responsible adults in the next year or two, from here, these are just some things to think about in ways that your math education at home can really help prepare them for the kind of adult that you might want them to be, or that you hope they will become, and certainly that they are more than capable of being. So that's that, and I will wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining me again this week at Ask Dr. Callahan. If you have questions about educating at home in math, or just educating high school, or you have questions about us, maybe you would like to know my favorite ice cream flavor, send us an email. We would love to hear from you, and maybe next week I will be answering your question. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.